mentioned in our notes prior to the pod around underinvestment in commodities in general, potential for maybe more energy crisis type scenarios. We've covered a lot of this stuff, but just your thoughts and this broader theme. Do we get back to a place like it was in Europe last year? Was that just the geopolitics of it? I mean, is it realistic that it could go there, or is that too much?
Yeah, this is a great topic because it's one that makes me really nervous. And I'm typically not, I'm not a gold bug. I'm not like a doomsayer or anything like that. I like take things practically. But the more I'm seeing this, I'm seeing a trend throughout commodities. And usually commodities don't have the same stories going on. Like oil will be oversupplied or undersupplied. It doesn't mean copper is going to be oversupplied or undersupplied at the same time. Some of these like base metals will move together, but oil and gas are usually different. Uranium's different. But every commodity market I look at, you're at this period where there's just not enough investment and demand for all these things continues to go up. So I think we were in this period of la la land that's gone off for over a decade where you had very cheap funding. There was a lot of money in private markets, venture capital, startup. If you were a company trying to like start something new, you could easily get funded. And so there's been all these new technologies, the whole electric vehicle industry, it's using all these metals, copper, lithium, but you don't see the investment to ramp the supply to meet this demand. And then also, on natural gas and oil. So I think we may hit this reckoning where we've had this period where we're just used to so much excess energy. Grant shale was a big part of that because it just brought up a new cheap source of energy for 15 years. And now you'll have a reckoning where there's not enough reinvestment and prices, there's going to be shortages or prices have to go up a lot to incentivize new drilling. I'll give you an example that puts it in perspective why like all this building of renewables and shutting down of traditional sources of energy can be a problem. Say I have like a house and a business and it used to say like a terawatt of energy over a year, just a made up number. If I build a gas power plant or a coal power plant that produces 1 terawatt, I'm golden, right? I have my energy needs covered. If I build a solar panels or a windmill that it generates a terawatt, I have an energy crisis, right? Because they don't generate power all the time. So during the day, they're generating what I need, maybe even more, but then at night they're gone or vice versa. And so that's basically what we're doing. There's not enough battery storage, which you need to be able to provide this. So I just see the world, especially Europe, they're shutting down oil power plants, gas power plants, coal power plants, and they're building all these renewables that you can't rely on all the time, but you want to have energy all the time, right? I don't want my power going out at certain times a day. So there's a reckoning coming, and it's going to take time to play out, but it's closer than it was, a little while ago because it doesn't make any sense.
Everything you're saying in that example is it's in the back of my head. I'm thinking bullish natural gas. It's just such an easy fix to a lot of these things, right? I mean, it's like you want more renewables, great. It's going to cause a lot of problems. Here's a solution that can help solve a lot of those problems. And by the way, we have a ton of it. And, the U.S. in particular is very well positioned to do it. So we don't have to rely on OPEC. We don't have to rely on Russia and these other actors. We can do it here domestically, and we can even supply the world in a lot of ways. So
you could build a gas plant in, less than 2 years. You could import the LNG for that gas. So LNG now has made it where gas is a world market. It used to be, you can't move gas around the world. So if I'm like in India, I could just close down a coal plant, build a gas plant, import the LNG. My emissions are down a lot.
Absolutely.
And I have all the energy I need all day long.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like part of this near-term pain, and I think where the Fed is in a bad spot is that the rising interest rates, and I've mentioned this with a few guests in the past, it's like, inflation's hot, which means service costs are higher. And then you jack up interest rates, which means credit's more expensive. And when it, in theory, this is going to kill demand. Now, that's really the only tool the Fed has, right? They want to kill demand. But ultimately, like, there's a whipsaw effect on supply too. Now, all of a sudden, these service companies, which they're already dealing with inflation, wages are going up. They got to pay people more. These guys live and die by lines of credit. They have incredibly tight cash conversion cycles. Now these lines of credit are way more expensive. Anybody with a heavy industry or heavy CapEx business, higher interest rates should make it harder to bring on more supply. I don't know if I'm overplaying that, but when I see rates going up, I'm like, this can't be helpful for the supply side of the equation.
No, that's a great point you make because we are seeing that because I look at oil, gas, as well as copper and all the precious metals. They're seeing lots of inflation. So that speaks to even if prices go higher, you would get the same supply out, right? Because you're just paying your contractors more. Your diamond drills cost more, all that stuff. So that speaks to even more trouble getting supply that we may need down the road. And there's actually a dirty little secret. I'm not against renewables. I want to decrease global warming, as much as the next guy. But costs of solar panels and windmills, have been falling for like 15 years. And that's part of what the industry points to. It's like, look at how exponential the cost decreases versus the price of oil goes up. But costs have actually gone up the last year or two because of that inflation you're talking about. But I haven't seen a new renewable cost chart come out from anyone because they don't want you to see that because that breaks the narrative of the costs are always falling all the time versus traditional sources of energy.